Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 169 of the Board Game Barrage podcast. I am your host, Neelan, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts, the red and green tanks. I almost said the orange tank there. I got briefly confused. I know, that is me. How weird is that?
But the one thing you didn't get confused is the pigeon blood pink tank. It's gone.
Yes, exactly. Our names, thankfully, are not as convoluted as Mr. Dan Hughes. But yes, with me, as always, are the red and green tanks, Mark and Kellen. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I had a brief moment of confusion where I felt like it had been longer since we last recorded than we did. So doing great.
You're like, I haven't seen you in a few weeks. And we're like, well, no, we did see you, sir. It was last Saturday.
Which is weird because I had no reason to think we had skipped an episode. I don't know. I don't know what's going on in my head right now. Today on the Board Game Barrage podcast, we are going to be looking ahead, always looking ahead to the year 2021, the far, far future, where a lot of amazing board games are coming out, and we're going to be BGBOBing our most anticipated games of 2021.
The far, far future of which 1/3 has already elapsed.
Exactly. That's how time works in a post-pandemic world.
Has the year started? You know, who
Barely.
can say? It does feel like it's that sort of that precipice, you know,
right,
where the year is beginning here on April, whatever date it is, the 12th.
I think what is exciting about this to me is that we are all on the verge of like actually getting back to playing games with each other more regularly. So this starts to feel to me like, okay, it's actually happening. We're in a new era of time that is about to kick off. So, you know, that's my feedback to anyone saying that April is too late to have an anticipated games 2021 list. Regardless, that's coming up later in the show. Before we get there, we're going to be talking about the games that we've been playing. We're going to be covering Clever Cubed with Kellen, Tainted Grail, which is what I've been playing, and Mark's going to tell us about Keyper. So, Kellen, why don't you kick us off with Clever Cubed?
You know, I have a hard time referring to this game as Clever Cubed because we kind of just say Gone Sean Clever or, you know, Doppelt so Clever. And I think this one, what is it?
It does have a German title. It is...
like Heikendal or Clever Hock Dre.
There it is, yeah.
And so Clever Cubed sounds like it's doing a disservice, but this is the third game in the Gone Sean Clever line designed by Wolfgang Warsch. And this is, I would say, probably the collective Board Game Barrage's favorite roll and write series. They are well known for having the combo-rific sort of turns where this pops to that, and then the app goes, yippee, and then everybody is very happy about the combos that they're generating. Gone Sean Clever, for some, the original game has some level of solution to it, that Twice as Clever sort of expands outward in a way that makes that really, really challenging. And Clever Cubed, I have, again, only played this in the app, only played it solo, so I do play solo games, thank you for asking, not just party games and diplomacy. And Clever Cubed is sort of the less luck, more finicky, more fiddly version of the game. And my scores are not very good. I'm in the 300s and the low 400s, and you can get into the 500s in Clever Cubed. But it follows almost the exact same formula of the last two games. You are rolling 5 dice, you are choosing one to take, and if you take a high dice, you're actually discarding your ability to use the dice that are lower than that. But this time, you know, there's 5 different mini games happening, and they're all relatively straightforward. You have your brown row where you have to put a specific brown number in it, and once you skip past a number, you can never go back. So this row is the you can never go back row. You have your pink row where you're actually choosing between 2 options, the benefit or multiplying your score by a certain value for that row. You have the blue row where you're actually starting in the middle, and you're going up on one side and going down on the other side from 7, and you can always put a 7 in the row, even if it's out of order. You have the yellow in the top left, which is giving you benefits, but this is interesting. If you take the yellow dice as your first dice on a turn, you can only fill in the first dice column. If you take the yellow dice on the second of your 3 dice, you can only fill the middle column, and then same thing for the third. So when you take the yellow dice, is important this time. And then the last one is a lighter blue color where the benefits are derived from sort of filling in half of the row versus all of the row. And filling in all of the row is how you score many points. I think it's important to also point out that one of the ways that the game gives you more control is one of the bonuses is change the die that you're selecting to a specific number. So as you collect bonuses, it's change a specific die to a 3, change a specific die to a 4, a 5, a 6, and then the last 3 times to whatever you want it to be. And so that middle bonus is giving you more control over what you're choosing. But it gets a little annoying because it's like, okay, I'm going to choose the 2 yellow because that only gets rid of 1 dice, the blue one, but then I'm going to turn that yellow into a 3 and actually put it over here. I have some doubts that this will be as fun to play in physical form because it's just a little bit more fiddly, finicky, and then when you convert that die to another die, you still discard it in the original number that it was. And one of the things that's interesting about teal is that teal, if you've selected 2 ones, and then the third die you select is a teal 1, you actually get to mark off 3 ones in the teal column. So everything is just a little bit more, a little bit finickier. With all of that said, I paid $3 for this as an app. I am delighted that I have it, that I can try to beat my score, that I can sit alone in my bed and yippee and yippoo without, Christina's asleep, and I'm just yippeeing up a storm over here with Clever Cubed. I think that within reason, if one of these came out a year for the rest of my life until I deceased, so, 87 years from now or something, I would be happy.
Give or take.
Well, I mean, I eat impeccably, Mark.
That's true. A well-oiled machine.
Callan, one of the things I was interested to hear you say was the idea that you would happily play every iteration of this. But, do you think that there is longevity in changing up every single one of these mechanics? Because every color is like a new little variant on, tried and true roll and write systems. So, how much life does that have in it? Do you think Clever 4 is on the way?
Whoa, please. How many other colors can they release? I love the idea that they keep trying to, change some of the colors so you can't just print out a new score pad.
Oh, that's funny.
That's their way of oh yeah, well this one has a teal die and that's not in the other.
Yeah, there's no way you could substitute a green die for a teal die.
Yeah, it would be too complicated. I do think you'd have to change up the way in which you combo or a little bit more, and we're stretching some of the limits of it. And, it really is for those people who have played it 100 times. You know what I mean? I think I've probably played Gone Sean Clever maybe 30 times in the app form, and this one, only 5 times, let's say. But, if I get another 5 plays out of it, please, it occupies your time for that 20 minutes and that feeling of beating your score, and then you can sort of blame the dice, or was it me, or was it the dice? For me, it's the dice. My score would be near perfect most times. But yeah, Mark, do you like these games? You don't usually talk about them.
I like them okay. I have the app for the first one for Gone Sean Clever. I never really feel too compelled to play it. I think I've played the app, 5 to 10 times, and I was pretty much done with it. Just beating my own score is not something that's super appealing to me.
Yeah.
You've not played the multiplayer yet, though, right?
I definitely have played the first one multiplayer in person. And I think I played the second one in person. I'm sure I played the second one in person as well.
Okay.
Multiplayer. I like that a little bit more, but it still feels like roll and righty to me. And so it's good, but it's nothing that I would definitely seek out to play.
I recently finished a video game, Persona 5 Royal, and there's this mechanic where if you hit an enemy's weakness, it passes to another character in your party, and then if you hit another enemy's weakness, it passes to another character's. And if you get to your 4th character, the mana cost goes to 0, your damage goes to times 20, and I think I did it 4 times over the course of a 100-hour game, but each of those 4 times, it was oh my god, I'm so cool,
Sure.
And in the app, when it pops, and then it pops, then it pops, you're sort of just feeling wow, I'm a cool guy right now.
Right.
And that feeling, I don't feel like I've ever gotten it in as strong of a dosage as you can get from the Clever series.
And I think that's right, because I think even in the context of roll and write, because it's so as abstract as it is, it's just condensing the mechanics down into just that pure roll dice, get points.
Yeah. You get sort of that slot machine feeling where things bing, 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 bing.
totally.
Yeah. Well, yeah, unless you plan it, like Neelan and I do.
Right.
Yeah.
I would assume. I'm adding you, Neelan, so that you can agree with me.
No, totally. I mean, but I mean, I'm the same with slot machines. I mean, if you just use my system, then there's no luck involved.
So that is Clever Cubed, the latest in the Gonshan Clever series.
So I have been playing Tainted Grail. This is a very large in scale campaign-based role-playing game by Awakened Realms. It has, out of the box, if you have no expansions or anything like that, it has 15 chapters that make up the campaign. And this is a campaign in every sense, which is to say the game is designed to be started at chapter 1 and played all the way through to chapter 15 in order to see the entirety of the story. I'm kind of surprised I came to this as late as I did, because I had a lot of affinity for Awakened Realms, some of which is dampened a little bit in the wake of games like Nemesis. But I'm surprised I didn't back this. But when a lot of people in our Discord were kind of raving about like how much they enjoyed it, I felt I sort of owed it to myself to give it a go. And the large reason for that is because I think that the thing that Tainted Grail builds on most strongly are like role-playing game books. Have either of you like ever played like a role-playing game book at all, like from like the 90s or 80s?
Tons.
Oh, Mark, I'm so excited to like have this discussion with you then, because I don't know if we share the same ones, but there was like a series of stuff from the UK where like some of the founders from like Games Workshop, like your Ian Livingston and the UK's Steve Jackson, which is not the same as the American Steve Jackson, who created like Games Workshop, create fighting fantasy, and then from the Games Workshop you start springing out like books like Bloodsword, and the evolution of this and lands up in a series of game books called Fabled Lands. This blew my mind when I was a kid. This came out like in the mid-90s, and it's a series of game books where each book is like a section of the world. So there's this idea that you're actually exploring this world, and you'll have mind-blowing moments like, turn to this section in this book, but that book hasn't come out yet. So you have to wait for that book to get released so you can go to the next section of the world. So Tainted Grail, in my mind, builds so strongly on that idea, which is to say it is a really, really good role-playing game book. And I say that because a large chunk of the content of Tainted Grail is in this really thick, ring-bound adventure book, where you're doing the kind of choose-your-own-adventure thing of like when you're at a location and you're exploring it, it's a lot of make your choice, then turn to this paragraph, then make your choice, and then go to this paragraph. In between all of that, there's like skill checks, because the character you choose has 6 different skills, and a lot of that will involve you rolling dice against those skills, for example. But all of it is kind of wrapped in this very cool map system, which definitely borrows heavily from something like a Seventh Continent. So the idea is you have this massive deck of cards, each card representing a location. And at any point in time, you're on one of these cards, and there are other cards, surrounding them, showing the places you can go to. But the illustrations and the art on these cards is gorgeous. You look at every location, you're like, oh, I want to go to there. And you spend some time traveling there, and then you explore that location. You go to the adventure book, do a little bit more searching back and forth, and so on. But I think the thing that separates this is this narrative core, which is not unlike something like a classic role-playing game where you have this big epic quest. So at the start of the game, without spoiling too much, you're sort of told, oh, you need to go after your mentor. So you're trying to follow their trail. But it gives you the slightest hint of a breadcrumb as to where to go, what to do. But otherwise, you're pretty free to explore this map, go in any direction, try to uncover your own way towards piecing together the story. It's not very linear in that regard. It actually does a good job of giving you a little bit of freedom of exploration. I think the interesting things that Tainted Grail layers on top of just being a role-playing game book, though, are also in some ways its biggest downfalls. So the 3 most interesting things, the first one is kind of the card exploration system. Like I said, it's just this beautiful idea where you're seeing the locations visually and sort of can head towards them in whatever direction you choose. But there's also like this resource grind associated with it, where in order to uncover new locations, you have to light these menhirs, which requires basically just grinding for either gold or food, which ties into the second edition, which is also kind of a bummer, which is kind of this layered on survival system where you actually have to keep getting food to stay alive. So I do think that the best parts of Tainted Grail get bogged down a little bit in just this feeling that you're just grinding for resources over and over again. That said, I do like this a lot. I think the unfortunate thing is that you kind of have to get past the grindy bits to get to the really, really good bits. But I think the bits that are good are very, very solid. Like, I don't know if it's just like this heavy dose of nostalgia for me, but it does feel like a well-written one of these game books where I'm actually compelled by the story. I'm excited to play more of it. I'm 5 chapters into a campaign of 15. I figured now would be a good time as any to like talk about that first third of the campaign and then maybe come back with my feelings like maybe another 5 chapters down the line. I will say a lot of criticism tends to say that the game wears on you over the course of time. So I'm very curious to see whether I maintain this momentum for the entirety of the campaign, but I'm really digging it. It's pretty neat.
You're playing this solo.
Yes, I am playing this entirely solo, and I would almost recommend it as a solo game, to the extent that I actually can't even imagine playing it multiplayer, because to my understanding, the resource grind for like the Menhir exploration just doubles or triples or quadruples based on the number of players. So it just sounds like that would all get more tedious. I feel like one of the strengths of the game is its combat system, but it's entirely something you're doing on your own. So watching someone else go through a combat would be very, very tedious because it's almost like a 10-minute process. So I don't know. I just don't know that I would get much out of this game multiplayer short of just it taking much longer to do anything productive.
Okay, so I see that they have a 60 to 120 minute playing time on the BGG page. Is that a like per chapter?
Yes.
And I would say pretty accurate?
That seems pretty accurate, yeah. And it actually wildly varies. I've had chapters where I was in and out of them within 45 minutes, and some that were like maybe 3 hours because I just completely missed the thread on what I was supposed to be doing. In fact, I actually think this actually almost suffers from something similar to the Seventh Continent, where the first chapter I think is the weakest.
I see.
I played it once and was like pretty annoyed with it and put it down for a long time until I went back to it. So I would say if that is you, don't let that dissuade you. I think it gets better as it goes and as the momentum kicks in. It is definitely a game not without its faults, and I sometimes wonder if I would just enjoy it more if it was just the book. But I do think that all the other stuff at the edges, like the combat system, like the map exploration, is worth experiencing even the downsides for.
And this is a much better experience for you than Seventh Continent?
By a mile. By a mile. Okay. I think any of the stuff that I would have complained about with Seventh Continent, the feeling like the world exploration was a little bit aimless, like the story just felt like tacked on. Now, I'm not familiar with the author, but I'm under the impression it's like an actual Polish novelist who has some renown, so it is actually well written. Like, I don't think it's the most original setting. It's basically like a take on Arthurian legend, but it's compelling. I'm finding it compelling, at least. It's in kind of like a schlocky fantasy sort of way.
Sure.
But the land is sinking, Neelan.
It is sinking.
Are you saving it?
You are trying to save it. The land is getting more and more tainted by the weirdness as you go. Yeah, and what's actually kind of quite cool is it does, like, similar to Seventh Continent, some locations become transformed into other locations, so as they get taken by the weirdness. So stuff like that is cool.
Do you think that Kellen or I would like this?
Oh, I would have said a flat out no until you mentioned to me, Mark, that you used to like game books a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I feel like your propensity to not play solo stuff makes me feel like it would be a lot to ask for you to set this up and go through the rigmarole of it.
Yeah, my concern is that like Gloomhaven didn't land with me.
Yeah.
And so does this feel like sort of the same ilk a little bit?
Not really, honestly, okay. No, yeah, because I do think that the combat is more sporadic, whereas that's all you're kind of doing in Gloomhaven. And I do think everything at the edges of the game systems, like the story and the world building, are a lot more solid. Gloomhaven's kind of just like rudimentary in that regard. But yeah, really fascinating thing. I'm glad I finally got around to it. And I will keep you posted as I get into more of it. That is Tainted Grail.
From the Illuminary minds that brought you Nemesis.
Exactly. Which is actually worth saying. Like, I think Awakened Realms are kind of like so like hit and miss for me. Like, I think that there are the wild swings and stuff like Nemesis, which, you know, I appreciate for trying something weird, but just didn't land.
Sunk too far into the weirdness.
Exactly. Got a little bit too weird. Mark, what is Keyper all about?
Keyper is from Richard Breese, and this is one of his Key series of games. Of them, I've played Keyflower, Key to the City London, and Keyflow. I've not played Cathedral and Key Market. But yes, this is a game that came out a couple of years ago. With Keyper, you get a lot of the Key series standards. You have along the lines of Keyflower and Key to the City London, where the color of your meeple matters. You're never going to be placing more than 2 meeples on a space, so it's not like the level of auctioning that you have in Keyflower, for example. You have upgrading of buildings like you do in a lot of the Key games. You have resource conversion. You have even the ship motif and the countryside sort of motif that you get in a lot of these games. But there are some interesting twists. So in Keyper, what you're trying to do is, in a lot of ways, it is a standard Euro resource conversion sort of game. You are trying to acquire goods to create buildings that will score you points and will also allow you to unlock spaces on your own personal board that nobody else can go to. You have a farm in this game, and you can acquire animals to sell and to gain resources. You also have a contract fulfillment mechanic. Every season there's a fair, and if you have the things that you need for the fair, you fulfill contracts and you get resources. So a lot of the standard sort of tropes of Euro resource gathering conversion games. But in addition to the other key game tropes, Keyper has the system where the places where you're placing your meeples are these shared boards. So you have a number of boards equal to the number of players. So if we're playing a 3-player game, you have these 3 shared boards, and they are the places where you can place your meeples to get your resources or to build buildings or do whatever you're doing. There is one spot on every board that you can, in a worker placement action, instead of placing a worker on one of the other resource generating spots, you can place it on this special spot on the board to claim that board. Now you can do that for your last meeple of the round, or you can do it for the first meeple of the round. It's up to you. But by the end of a round, all the claim spots will have been taken for all 3 boards in the case of a 3-player game. And what you do at that point is all the meeples that have been placed on that board will be your meeples for the next round. So if there is a board where everybody's going to, and you claim it, then all these meeples, no matter who placed it, no matter if you've placed the meeples there or your opponents did, those are your meeples for the next round. So that is an interesting aspect where it's like your meeples are not your own. You start with an array of meeples that everybody has, and each meeple specializes. Like the gray meeple will get you more ore than a normal meeple would, and the green meeple does something else, and the orange meeple does something else better than the other meeples. So everybody starts with the same sort of standard set of meeples, but after the first round, once you take a board, now you've got a different collection of meeples than anybody else, and potentially more meeples or less meeples than other people. That's one thing. The other thing, and this is probably the biggest gimmick when it comes to Keyper, is that these boards that, again, the worker placement boards, once you've selected one at the end of the round, you get all the meeples from it, and then it's this weird folding board that you can fold to unlock different worker placement spots. It's not like a standard folds in a couple places. It's got like these flaps on it, and it's just very weird the way that folds, and it actually takes some getting used to figure out how to even orient it into like a legal pattern.
Minute. Are you saying that if you've worked in a retail shop folding T-shirts, you might be better at Keyper?
You have a distinct advantage.
A distinct
advantage, yeah.
Wow.
It's part of the rule book that says, like, if you worked at the Gap, if you're familiar with this and there's like a little picture of a shirt being folded, then there's like you have to take a handicap. 1 meeple less.
My God.
And then if you're a manager, then 2 meeples less. There's a whole chart about like how far you got in the Gap hierarchy. And that's basically Keyper. I enjoyed it. I've been playing a lot of, I think, sort of bog standard Euro games recently. And Keyper, while not like my favorite Euro game of all time or my favorite resource conversion game of all time, is one that definitely stood out. The folding thing is interesting, but that is more of a gimmick. I just like that whole Keyflower-esque, when you place a color of a meeple in a spot, that is now the color of that spot, and if you want to go there later, you have to place the same color meeple. And I also like the fact that it's not like every round everybody's going to have 1 gray, 1 orange, 1 brown meeple, and it's going to be like the same thing over and over again. It really fluctuates wildly based on when you choose to claim these player boards. And even that is interesting because, you know, it may be late in the game, and you may be like, I want to lessen the ability for other people to build buildings in this last round because I know Kellen really wants to build a building, and there's no way you're going to totally block out an action, but you can on your own board make it so that there are more spots potentially or less spots potentially, and sort of try to influence the way the game is going to end or progress based on what you want and based on the way you fold the board. So just a couple really interesting aspects while maintaining the sort of tropes that you're used to with a Euro resource conversion game. So I liked it. Definitely am interested in playing it again.
I am reading just a little bit. I always try to look at some pictures. There are 19 different resources in Keyper.
There are.
19, Mark? 8 types of animals, 4 types of gems, 3 types of raw materials, 3 types of finished goods, and wheat. Are you me right now?
Hey, if you can't handle the key, stay out of the Keyper, as they say.
I really want to try this. actually, to be honest with you. It looks pretty interactive. It looks like it plays better at higher player count from what it feels like.
It is definitely like super blocky. A lot of tempo things where, you definitely want to get to something first. And just like being able to take other people's meeples can feel very mean in a cool way, sort of thing.
It looks, and correct me if I'm wrong, it looks a little like open-ended. Like you could kind of do whatever you want.
Sure, yes. You can be the person who does this or the...
Yeah, there's sort of... I don't know how to classify, but, as opposed to like a Teotihuacan or a Tekenyu, where it's like, here are the 17 subsystems that you will go through in order, this is a little more like, you go figure out what you want to do, and I might do something else.
Absolutely, yeah. You can be the farm guy, you can be the building guy, you can be the guy who ships a lot of stuff. There's like a bunch of things that you can specialize in. And then, you have to make sure that like, hey, if I'm going to be the person who does the shipping, I've got to make sure to get the blue meeples. And how am I going to do that? Mm-hmm. Is it going to be like, as soon as somebody places blue meeples on a board, I'm going to instantly claim it? Or am I going to risk waiting? Because, once you claim a board, if you claim a board early, then it's like everybody's disincentivized to go on that board. And it's like really interesting, like, when do you jump on a board sort of thing.
Yep. That's cool.
That's awesome, yeah. Where does this like stack in like the Key series for you overall?
I'd have to play Keyflow again. I remember enjoying Keyflow. I think still, though, it's probably my second favorite. I think it's Keyflower, then Keyper, then Keyflow, then Key to the City of London, which I didn't enjoy very much.
Cool, yeah, that sounds great.
Yep. So that is Keyper by Richard Brees.
So before we get onto our featured topic...
and before you talk about whatever you're going to talk about, I've got to jump in here by saying thank you so much. As I have mentioned an obnoxious amount of times, April 11th was my birthday, and I put it out there that when we had, I think, something like a little over 200 reviews, that I was wanting 300 reviews by April 11th. And then we found out later that only Apple reviews sort of counted on the site we were using to sort of judge the number. And yet, despite those hurdles, you guys somehow amazingly came through. I can't thank you enough. It's super awesome. We are now at 314, and I think that number is not exactly accurate. It may take up a couple spots, but it is just amazing. I mean, it helps out the show because I think it makes us more visible on the Apple Podcast site or system. In addition, it's just super cool to like wake up, see more reviews, and just read them. And it's just, speaking for myself, I can't imagine you guys feel any differently, but like waking up and reading these new reviews, it just every single time just warmed my heart. It was amazing. You guys are great. So as I promised, I'm going to somehow collate these. I'm also going to collate reviews from other sources just so everybody can get in. And then we're going to pick 10 of them, and I'm going to send 10 games to those people. Again, thank you guys so much. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking to see 40% monthly growth. So that's 1,240% more reviews than this time last month.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy. And I even off the air tried to convince Mark this was a bad plan because we weren't going to get it.
Right.
And so the pessimist me was beaten by the optimist Mark. Is very, very kind.
And again, just a closing, thank you guys so much. It was a fantastic birthday surprise, so I really appreciate that.
I'm glad you did interrupt me because that is lovely. I'm glad to call it out because, yeah, they're fantastic. But...
And we could not ask them to do any more, right? They have done so much.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah, so what were you going to say, Neelan?
They've given so much of their time, been so kind, doing this lovely thing to us.
We would never ask more.
So, please go to BoardGameGeek.com because the Golden Geek Award nominations have just kicked off, and we would love to be nominated for the Best Podcast Award for Golden Geek 2020. You can head straight to BoardGameBarrage.com/vote, and that will take you directly to the page on Board Game Geek where you can nominate us for Best Podcast. Just look for us as Board Game Barrage. I saw a couple of people in the Discord were thrown by some other podcasts that had BGB in the title. That is not us. And we would hugely appreciate that.
Yes, that would be incredible. Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to our feature for this episode, which is our ranking of our anticipated games of 2021. As I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to be doing this BGBOB style, which means that we're going to be ranking them live using pubmeeple.com. So I have 5 submissions from everyone, which I am putting into the system.
Nealon, for those who have not heard a previous BGBOB episode, what does BGBBOB stand for?
Oh, BGBOB.
What does it stand for, Mark?
Yeah. I mean, what? Yeah, exactly.
It's in the show Bible. It's in the Bible.
Totally. We all know that BGBOB stands for Board Game Barrage, Battle of the Board Games,
Best of board
Best
games.
of board games, Best of battling board games, bunkered and blown away.
No, that's coming later.
Oh, sorry.
It's a little tease.
To summarize, we're going to throw these 15 games into BGBOB. We're going to be ranking them in a series of 1v1 battles until we have an ordered list of 15. What that means at the tail end of this, we will come up with the definitive list of the 15 games that we as a site are most excited to play in 2021.
And we each contributed 5 games, so we are going to battle for our games. So there's a little bit of spice there.
Okay, let's kick it off with the first little battle. This is between, on one side, Perseverance, Castaway Chronicles, and Furnace. I threw in Perseverance, Castaway Chronicles, so I will introduce it really quickly. This is the next game from Mind Clash Games. They are the makers of Tricarion, Cerebria, Anachrony, these awesome heavy Euro but very strongly thematic games where the mechanics are so tightly tuned to the thematic elements. Perseverance Castaway Chronicles does this bizarre, crazy thing where there's going to be a series of, I think, 3 or 4 games. The first 2 are coming out this year, and each game feeds thematically into the next. It's not exactly a campaign. They're all standalone games, but the idea is that the world is sort of moving on. The story is progressing as you play each of these board games. I don't think it's intended that you play 1, then play 2, then play 3, then play 4, because the idea is that they're all going to be unique, cool games. One of the designers is David Turtzi, whose stuff I generally like a fair bit, and I love how weird this looks. It's got like a kind of crazy Dino Riders vibe to it. It's just mad. I'm excited for this.
All right. That sounds fine. But let's talk about Furnace. Okay? Furnace is a new engine building card game, okay, with beautiful art that has some auction element in it. It's very quick to play, and it's designed by Ivan Lashin, who blew us away with Smartphone Inc. as his previous design. It is coming to us from Arcane Wonders. It is already getting good press, and the artwork has the same sort of white color palette, striking visuals. People are saying the auctions can be fun and mean. Simple to play. As simple to play, look at this. As simple to play as Splendor, the comborificness of Res Arcana, and the upgrading and the drafting from Keyflower.
Okay, where are you reading that?
Someone at random review from Russia. Vulture.
Oh, Vulture. I know Vulture. He's good. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a good.
Yeah.
Honestly, this was, well, I won't reveal what spot of my 1 to 5 this is, but Furnace looks to be a fantastic game. I have been so excited when I heard Arcane Wonders was picking this up with all the buzz from overseas, and overseas being somewhere not in the U.S. where I can't acquire it. This is Furnace coming to us this year from Arcane Wonders.
Nealon, you forgot to mention the rule about Fire Away, so please let the listeners know.
Oh, yeah, very quickly. So
the most important thing.
The most important thing is once we have chosen a game and said Fire Away, it is locked in. So once 2 people fire away on a game choice, that argument is done. Perseverance, Castaway Chronicles, fire away!
Okay, Mark, this is easy.
Okay, here we go, because I'm the one who's being wooed here.
Yes.
Yeah.
How many dinosaurs are there in Furnace, Callan?
That's right.
Yeah, there's capitalists, okay? Look at the guy. He has a top hat.
You're trying to sell us with there's capitalists? That's your argument?
What do you think? Mark's going to like dinosaurs or capitalists better?
So I will say that I had Perseverance on my shortlist.
Ooh.
And I did not have Furnace on my shortlist. But looking at the cover, there's a somber guy with a hat.
Top hat.
It's called Furnace.
Yes.
I'm thinking engine building. I'm thinking and then you told me that it's a guy who made Smartphone Inc.
Yes.
And I am going Furnace, fire away.
What?
Furnace, fire away.
Betrayed
We don't
me.
like dinosaurs here.
Honestly, I had Perseverance on my list, and I am excited about it, but I'm a little concerned about the, multiple game thing. I know it's not like you have to play one to the other, but I'm just a little worried. I have the same concerns that were sort of born out from the Century Spice Road series where it's like every game was fine, but like the whole connection thing wasn't all that it seemed to be cracked up to be. So
right, is there more weight on the gimmick or on each of the games?
Right,
I can understand that. I'm fairly confident just because of Mind Clash's track record.
Clash, for sure.
Next up is Coffee Traders on one side and Weather Machine on the other, and I think these are both Mark games.
Yeah, these are both mine. So I'm going to tell you about both of them, and then you guys can. What's that?
Well, can we select neither?
Okay, well, I'll go for the first one, which is the one that I know that Kellen is not going to vote for, which is Weather Machine, which is the latest Lacerda. I think it's still in fairly early stages, although I think a 2021 release is in the works. So this is Lacerda like standard, where it is a heavy game with interlocking aspects to it. The idea is that there's some mad scientist with a weather machine, and when he like messes with something somewhere through a series of interlocking effects, something happens somewhere else. Now, look, I would not have been as excited about this game maybe a year ago when I was sort of on the downswing of my Lacerda feelings. But after playing the Gallerist and after playing Venios again, I'm back to being excited about Lacerda. This is going to be Ian O'Toole. The art and the theme are going to be there. And I, again, am sort of like back to being excited about playing Lacerda games. So that is where Weather Machine is. Coffee Traders is, I think, the next heavy game from Capstone Games. I think Capstone, although there have been some misses from Capstone, Ragusa being one of them, most of their games, when they come out, production-wise, rules-wise, my enjoyment of the game-wise, hits on all cylinders. Coffee Traders is about being a coffee trader, and it's a very heavy economic game. There's a lot of stuff going on. I have sort of moved away from these types of games a little bit, these super, super heavy economic games, just a touch. I'm still a big fan of them, and obviously this is on my list. But when it comes to Capstone, I just trust them. I trust them to produce good games. So yes, those are my two.
I feel like Coffee Traders has to do a lot to convince me here. It being a very, very long, heavy economic game, I think Capstone is the thing that gets me potentially like, oh yeah, I'm going to pay attention to this a little bit. But like, I don't have any familiarity with the previous designers' pedigree, Wildcatters, I just don't know anything about. And the more I look at Coffee Traders, it just doesn't grab me. But I was this close to putting Weather Machine on my list. Even though I'm not the hugest Lacerda fan, I do really, really like Venios. I think everything about the theme of Weather Machine is just speaking to me, like the crazy device, like the way that's described and the way that interacts with the board feels cool. I am very willing to give another go to Mr. Lacerda for Weather Machine. Fire away.
So, Coffee Trader, I am very into coffee. Okay. As a result of the pandemic, I now have an espresso machine. You know, you got to dial it in. Okay. You get a shot, you dial it in. That's what a barista does. I was extremely excited about this. I think that Wildcatters is very good, very interesting and different.
Yeah.
But everything that I have heard about Coffee Trader since the pre-order, you can play this on TTS, has been not as good as I had expected, not as interactive as I had expected, a lot on the table. I almost pre-ordered Coffee Traders because it came with literal coffee, which spoke to me on many levels because I could dial that in. Now, on the other hand, you know, you have Mr. Lacerda, who I won't comment on for the backlash. I do not want to be naive this week. For me, Coffee Traders, 100%. Capstone Games mostly can do no wrong. I would be very interested to try this, but the price and the sort of sprawling nature of it, it does look like a spreadsheet that has been colored in a little bit. But still, that overcomes Mr. Lacerda. Coffee Traders, fire away.
Coffee Traders is higher on my list, and I think it's the more strategic pick if I'm trying to get my games up, so I'm going to go Coffee Traders far away.
Okay, Coffee Traders moves on. Next up is Brazil, Imperial, and Arkwright, the card game.
All right, so let us talk about Brazil Imperial. This is a 2021 release that I originally thought was in the Imperial line of games, Imperial and Imperial 2030, so I'm like, hell yeah, I'm clicking on that. After clicking into it, it is described as a Euro-style 4X game based around Brazil during the 16th to 19th century. This theme has the opportunity, and I just want to speak to it up front, to be potentially quite problematic. There is a lot of discussion on the BGG forum about how they've used consultants and people who are from Brazil to sort of speak to that culture and really say there are a lot of historical figures in here that you're actually going to learn about Brazil's history while you play what is a 4X game about sort of expanding your territory. The artwork for this looks awesome. What I little see about the prototype with the hexes and the sort of expanding outward, I really, really enjoy 4X style games, and I'm just looking for that one that can come in at under, like 4 hours, probably. I think if I could get one at 3 hours, and it leans more Euro, I am all in for this. This was very high on my list with a unique theme, 4X gameplay, a little Euro, a little ability to impact your opponents. Wow. Brazil Imperial. I would be extremely excited if we had this in our hands, if we could play this weekend. What a game night we could have. Excited about it.
Arkwright is a ultra heavy board game, among the heaviest out there, certainly among the heaviest popular games out there, that I have yet to play, that I've always wanted to play, and I think it's something I'm going to be playing within the next month or so. But it's just renowned as a super, super heavy economic game that is very, very well regarded, but very heavy, very long. Arkwright, the card game, from what I've heard, promises to take everything from Arkwright, sort of trim it down in terms of the rule set and the footprint, because Arkwright is a fairly large game in terms of its footprint, and sort of just trim it down into its essential parts and make it into a card game that is still quite heavy while retaining all the Arkwright goodness that people enjoy so much. So that on its face is enough to make me interested in Arkwright the card game. A slimmed down version of this game that has seemed like a white whale to me for so many years is something I'm quite interested in.
I think Kellen already had my heart at a sort of condensed Euro 4X game. And I've got to be honest, Mark, that the prospect of a game that has the card game subtitle that is still at 3.7 weight on BGG is a little bit distressing.
Sure, I get that, because I wonder how it handles that sort of weight with a card game. But, if you had Arkwright the card game at a 2,
right,
then it'd be like,
you
what are
know
we
that
doing?
something got lost along the way. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Arkwright is a game that I've been dimly aware of, but I've never been enthused to want to try. It's just a very, very big hurdle. But yeah, I actually wasn't familiar with Brazil at all until I just started looking at it now, and I am in love with the colors of it and the concept of this Euro 4X game. So I'm a fire away for Brazil Imperial.
You're just getting beat, Mark. Brazil, fire away.
Yeah, I'm going to vote for Arkwright the card game, but it's honestly, to be frank, close.
Okay, next up we have LAMA Dice and Oathsworn Into the Deepwood.
All right, this is easy, guys. Okay, we have, on one hand, the only true and living Dr. Reiner Knizia made a game. Everyone loves it. It's called LAMA. Okay, it has cards in it. Everybody loves it. It's the greatest game. Now, he's taken that game. He got rid of the cards. Who likes cards? They're fiddly. They hurt your hands. He's replaced those with dice. LAMA dice. Roll the dice. Get rid of your cards. I think this game almost has nothing to do with LAMA, I think. But it's LAMA dice. It's exciting. I've been trying to order it from Germany for at least 6 months. I'm very excited for it. I want it. I love these little games that you can get in the small boxes. The problem is, if you import it, you never know if it's going to have English rules. And I've gotten bit by that like 3 times in the last month. LAMA dice. Easy vote. Vote for it.
Oathsworn Into the Deepwood is my most anticipated in like this campaign-style role-playing game. Some might wonder why Frosthaven isn't going to appear on this list at all, and it's because I'm just about wrapping up my Gloomhaven campaign. I just don't feel like Frosthaven is the game I want to dive into this year, but Oathsworn very much is, because what it does is it takes that campaign structure, but injects a little bit more Kingdom Death Monster into it, which is not a game that I've played. But I love the idea of these very bespoke scenarios where you have a very specific big monster that is the combat in the game. So it's not like a dungeon crawl where you're progressing through a space, fighting lots of monsters. There is one big like boss scenario per chapter, and in between there are these story and choices where your party travels through. This is a big minis Kickstarter game that I am just mad excited for. It is coming out later this year. It looks stunning. It is definitely on the sort of throw lots of dice and hit big monsters end of the spectrum, but it just looks like such a lavish production in a realm of game, that KDM realm that I've just not really explored, which, a lot of people obviously have a lot of enthusiasm for.
It's just like, Neelan, all of these games with the colons in them, and then the weird woods and the wormwoods and the and it's like the minis are cool. And it's like, but you're like banking on the fact that this is going to be a fun game, and you're up against LAMA dice.
Well,
and you think this is better.
I kind of feel like it would be a hard battle against any Reiner Knizia game, but LAMA dice, we didn't even like LAMA.
Yes, we did. I liked Party Llama Edition. I have the one with the pink llama. I loved it. Oathsworn : Into the Deepwood.
That's a name.
Over Llama Dice.
Look, I didn't like Llama the first time I played it, but then I played it again and I did like it.
Yeah.
But I'm not excited about Llama Dice.
What?
I'm sorry, I'm not excited about Llama Dice.
You're excited about Oathsworn: Into the Deepwood?
I'm probably never going to play Oathsworn, and yet I'm going for Oathsworn Fire Away.
Oh my
Yes,
God.
Oathsworn, fire away.
Reiner, I tried.
Okay, next up is Oath, Chronicles of Empire in Exile, and Kabuto Sumo.
Kabuto Sumo, okay? Let's think about this for 1 minute, okay? Have you ever played a game at the arcade where you put a coin in the thing and it rolls down and there's like a plate with a bunch of other coins on it and it's the pusher machine and you're trying to get your coin to push
it's called
off
the
other
worst
coin?
game at arcade.
Excuse me?
The absolute worst game at any arcade.
Okay, well, your microphone is cut off till the end of the description. Imagine that in a board game form, except you are Beatles sumo wrestling. Okay, so that's the theme. That's the gameplay. You've got an elevated platform. You've got a bunch of little discs. You're sort of pushing them and trying to push off in a dexterity way. You know, we've seen this mechanism before in Ye Boring Euro game Via Appia. Is that the name of that, Mark?
Yeah.
And now it's in Ye Fun Kabuto Sumo game. Okay? I backed this on Kickstarter. I'm very excited for it. I think it'll be fun, silly, greatness. Very lovely little production. Excited for this one to come in. That is Kabuto Sumo.
So Oath is a game that was crazy hot on Kickstarter a while ago, and I put it on my list, even though I didn't back it on Kickstarter. I regret that a little bit now. I'm not a big Kickstarter guy, and to be honest, I probably still wouldn't back it anyway, just because I'm not going to back things on Kickstarter. I'll just get them when people get sick of them. But Oath does have me having a little seed of regret there, because it's by Cole Worley, who always makes interesting designs. Even when I'm not a huge fan of them, they're always interesting, without fail, for sure. And to be honest, I'm not even sure what Oath is exactly. I know it's already available on Tabletop Simulator, but part of the description from the publisher is what really gets me about Oath. Here's a line from it. It says, "In Oath, there are no fancy production tricks, app-assisted mechanisms, or production gimmicks. Furthermore," he says, "there are no scripted narratives or predetermined endpoints."
If that's a crack at Kabuto Sumo, Mr. Cole Worley, we won't hear it and we won't respond to it.
It feels like it has a legacy or campaign element, and yet it seems to acknowledge the reasons why people don't like campaign or don't like legacy games, and is accounting for that. It's got the art from Root, which is undeniably charming. Again, I think there are a lot of people out there who know more about the mechanisms of Oath than I do, but there are enough ingredients in there that I am very, very excited about what Oath could be.
It's funny, Mark, because I feel like I've had the opposite arc with Oath to you, which is to say I did back it and I was very excited for the prospect of it, because I do think that the game that evolves as you play it, that isn't a campaign game, that isn't a legacy game, that just has this sort of emergent narrative that feeds into the next game, is fascinating. I love everything about that. That said, like, I feel like with Cole Worley in general, I like but don't love his game, so
yeah.
I feel like I'm just a little bit trepidatious about Oath, despite the fact that I backed it. I also...
And yet, you're never going to vote for Kabuto
I want to
Sumo.
be clear. I'm not going to vote for Kabuto Sumo in this instance.
Yeah.
But I do think that Kabuto Sumo actually sounds really, really fun. I do like those coin pusher games. And I think that they're fun to watch other people do.
You're lying.
I'm being genuine.
Kellen.
There is an English game show called Tipping Point that is entirely built on the coin pusher thing.
Just like
and I
Tipping
feel like
Point.
I watch them like...
That's what I said.
It's like mind-numbing viewing, but it's compelling. I want to watch people do
All
it
right.
and fail at it. Kabuto Sumo is not going to win this one out, but I am actually weirdly interested in that. But Oath was very close to being on my list, so that's a fire away for me.
Okay, listen, if Kabuto Sumo is 15 of 15, we will have failed as a podcast, and this will be the last episode.
You and me
First
will make
of all.
sure that
Second
doesn't
of all,
happen, Kellen.
Thank you, Neelan. But I have had the thought, like, in the last, 4 weeks, to message Neelan, because I did not back Oath because Neelan backed Oath. But that does come with a promise, and that promise is that we'll be the ones playing Oath together. And I've had, the distinct mental thought, well, I need to make sure Neelan knows that I'm in for Oath. He can't not play this without me. And I've had that thought multiple times. Oath for me, fire away.
Oath, fire away.
Oath it is. Next up is Darwin's Journey and Skyrise. Darwin's Journey is actually the game that, like Mark was just describing, that I regret not having backed. I think that this has been getting a lot of love in our Discord. I tend to gravitate towards these sort of historical science themes. And Darwin's Journey, like, tells the story of, like, Darwin's exploration of the Galapagos and, like, how he came to his theory of evolution by, like, sort of exploring locations, finding species, like cataloging them. Like, it sounds just like a very cool and different theme. And a lot of people have a lot of praise for the worker placement systems, that it's quite blocky to my understanding. So it's a good sort of worker placement. This is also designed, at least one of the designers is Simone Luciani, who makes a lot of games I like. Tolkien is partly designed by Mr. Luciani. So Darwin's Journey is something I'm super excited about.
All right, let's talk about this. We've got a much-loved game, okay? Much-loved game, and we've got Roxley doing a redesign of it. What am I talking about? Brass? No, I'm not talking about Brass. I'm talking about Skyrise. Skyrise is a reimagining, redesign of Metropolis, which is a game from, I think, 2008, 2009, that is like one of those old Euro gems. It is an auction game with a spatial element, which is super interesting. Basically, what you're doing is you are bidding on spots to, like, put buildings. And the way that you bid is, once a spot is up for bid, you bid on it by placing buildings around it. But to raise a bid, you have to place a higher number building around the spot that's being bid for. But there is a spatial element where sometimes spaces can be blocked out because there's no room, or it's already surrounded by high numbered buildings. It's just got a very clean rule set. It's a game that I played once a while back, and I've been hunting for it ever since. Just an elegant design, and Roxley re-implementing an elegantly designed game from the past is like a beautiful combination that has worked before, and I'm sure is going to work again, and I'm just super excited about Skyrise.
Kellen, your eyes will learn how to detect the hidden species in the tropical forest, gazing at the countless colors and textures of nature. After inspiring hours spent studying and getting to enlightening conclusions, you will rest under a sparkling sky, admiring the stunning complexity of the animal realm.
Callan, look, this is what Nealon wants. Nealon wants this game to be like what he thought Newton was going to be. Like, we were all excited about Newton, like, oh, I'm going to invent the whole world. I'm going to be this great inventor. I'm going to be like Darwin. I'm going to be discovering animals.
That's how he
and then
sees himself.
When the game comes out, it's garbage, you know? So that's what's going to happen here. You are a guy about Diamond in the Rough games. This is Diamond in the Rough games being polished up. It's beautiful. It's great.
Yes. No, Darwin's Journey, when I look at the board, and when I have looked at the board, looks like a bunch of tracks disguised as not tracks, which never goes. The problem with Metropolis is that the Skyrise cover looks like a straight downgrade for me from the Metropolis cover.
Sure.
There's something sort of whimsical and interesting about the old cover, and this new cover is like, oof, they really genericked it.
Yeah.
But
fair.
the auction mechanism that you're describing, the more simple gameplay, there is no way that I could vote in good faith for Darwin, who, did he even do anything for us? Skyrise.
Is evolution even real?
Well, that's not what I was taught as a child, Leland.
Mark, did you say Skyrise Fire Away?
No, but I am saying Skyrise Fire Away.
Damn it. Thought I could trick you there for a second. Okay, next is Gods of Atlantis 2 versus Ankh, Gods of Egypt. These are both my submissions. Gods of Atlantis 2, I feel like I've spoken at length about Gods of Atlantis over the years. I love Gods of Atlantis 2. I played it a fair bit pre-release in playtesting and on Tabletopia. It is an excellent game. It streamlines a little bit. It reduces the time length of the original game. It makes even the fifth card, which is just a rest in the original game, have an interesting action. Everything about Gods of Atlantis feels like it has been enhanced and changed and cleaned up in a way that feels phenomenal. And we have a card named after us. Ergo.
Oh, that is
Gods
true.
of Atlantis
That's a good selling
2
point.
should win this. But that said, before I get there, let me tell you my little pitch for Ankh, and then we can battle it out. Ankh is the next miniatures combat game in the Blood Rage Rising Sun trilogy by Eric Lang. So this is a troops on a map game, heavily thematic, built around a ancient mythology. In this case, the gods of Egypt is the subtitle, where you are controlling a respective god of Egypt and establishing worship to monuments. It has guardians, and which are sort of monster type creatures that like have these fantastic miniatures that you can summon onto the board. Like Rising Sun, the conflict takes place at regular intervals, and it has this weird system where in a 3-player or higher game, the 2 lowest players fuse together into one mega god in order to try beat the remaining players. It's got
That's cool.
That's
cool.
pretty
It's
cool.
pretty cool.
That's cool.
So that is Ankh Gods of Egypt.
This one's tough for me because on one hand, I had Ankh on my list further down, and it's got the homeland in it. It's got my ancestors in it. It's got the Egyptian theme. On the other hand, although I'm not a MOBA player and I suck at the Guards of Atlantis games, I really, really appreciate what they're doing. And I feel like I appreciate how much better MOBA players are at that game than I am, because I feel like it actually is, the sport of MOBA games is coming through, and I really love that. And so this is tough. This is super tough for me, but it comes down to one thing. Which game has a BGB card? I'm going with Guards of Atlantis 2. Fire away.
I struggle here, okay? It's a little bit of that struggle of what you know versus what you don't know. Blood Rage is one of my favorites. Rising Sun is a great game that I'm done with, personally. And the hard thing for me with Guards of Atlantis is who Guards of Atlantis is for. I think about my brother, and if we had unlimited time and all of his friends, you know, could we get this tournament going over the weekend where we just play it over and over again? And then it's sort of like, we could just play League of Legends on our phones, and the games are 20 minutes long, and then we're all goofing off and screaming at each other versus what Guards of Atlantis is. With that said, I love Guards of Atlantis. It's very cool. I think I'm voting for Ankh here as a protest vote, but it's close. Ankh, fire away.
Gods of Atlantis 2 edges it for me. I kind of get what you're saying, Cullen. It's like this idea of a known quantity versus something that I'm just, you know, I don't even know all the systems in Ankh. I've not like read through the rulebook or anything like that. But I just know that I'm going to love Gods of Atlantis 2. I have like every confidence, and I'm just like counting down the days until it comes and I can play it. So I think in the truest word of like anticipation, like Gods of Atlantis 2 edges it for me. Fire away. Okay, next up is Furnace versus Dokojong.
Oh no. I knew it would come to this. So Furnace is the fantastic new game from Arcane Wonders that I am excited about, right? Dokojong, you know, who knows if I'm saying that right. I should, because I studied some Japanese, is the latest Oink game that is just starting to be delivered. This is a bluffing game. I feel like Oink is at its best when they're trying simple little stupid things. It's also about like pug dogs. I don't know the exact translation of Dokojong, but it's literally like a pug face on the cover of the game. And it is about trying to hide which dog you have behind your screen. And so there's these little dice that are adorable. They're like these yellow dice, and you're hiding. One of them is your dog, and there are doors that you're sort of like hiding and guessing and bluffing and double thinking. Extremely excited to get this from their most recent Kickstarter campaign. With that said, up against Furnace, this is a very struggle for me, but I have to be true to my roots. Dokojong, fire away.
This is Furnace for me. For sure, fire away.
You may not know this about me, but I love pugs, so I can't vote against one of my favorite dog species. And actually, I'm always on board for like any Oink game, frankly. I don't know, I've got to be honest, like something about Furnace isn't grabbing me, so I'm going to say Dokojong, fire away.
There's something about the production of Oink games that I just look at what's in the box and I say they get it. Or at least they get me.
Okay, next up is Two Returners, Brazil Imperial, and Coffee Traders.
This is not even a question, and this is someone who knows how to dial in a shot of espresso. Okay, and the answer is Brazil, Imperial, Euro 4X game. Do it. Fire away.
This is close for me, but I'm going to stick with my Coffee Traders. But I could go either way.
Yeah, I think it's Brazil Imperial for me. Euro 4X is kind of an easy no-brainer, for me at least.
Yeah, it's got a colon, so we know.
Exactly. How could I not? Brazil, fire away.
The wormwood.
Okay, Coffee Traders versus Arkwright, the card game. And this one, I think Coffee Traders will edge out for me.
Yeah, I'm going to go Coffee Traders on this too.
You didn't even let me speak.
I didn't
was
fire
going
away,
to vote
so
for
go ahead.
Arkwright. I was going to vote for Arkwright. Arkwright is interesting conceptually, right? Like you have your factory, you're spinning up your workers. The problem with these card game versions is when there's like 17 piles of cards,
Right.
it's like more annoying than actually setting up the board game.
Right.
So if it's a streamline that feels like that original, I'm excited. I would love to try Arkwright, the card game, and we'll be voting for it here. Fire away. Coffee Traders just looks too sprawling. It looks too much like a spreadsheet, man.
Yeah, I get that. I'm going to go Coffee Traders Fire Away, but I think Arkwright, it may have piles of cards, but it's going to go down from a 3-hour game to a 1.5 to 2-hour game. So even with the piles of cards, you're saving on setup time, I think, and probably is worth it. But I'm going Coffee Traders Fire Away.
Coffee Traders Fire Away. Arkwright the card game versus Weather Machine.
This is not even a question if you guys do not vote for Arkwright the card game, okay? Another Vital Lacerda game, okay? How many of those have we had?
I mean,
These are both mine, and it's tough.
it sounds like you're going to be the deciding vote, Mark, because I'm firing away in Weather Machine.
Ugh.
You know what, Kellen? If you're going to play Arkwright the card game with me, I'll go Arkwright the card game.
Arkwright the card game.
All right, fire away.
Done.
Oath, Chronicles of Empire and Exile versus Oathsworn Into the Deepwood. Two good colon games.
2 good Oath games.
Oh, that's a good point. Wow, yeah. 2 games.
Yeah, you went colon. I'm like, what are you talking?
But yeah, so I mentioned my sort of vague reservations about Oathsworn I'm excited for. I'm excited to like break out that box and take my Gloomhaven crew from Gloomhaven into a more fighty, crazy, another epic adventure with Oathsworn.
Wait, you're taking your characters from Gloomhaven and
I'm
you're
not,
putting them in
we're not
Oathsworn?
porting the characters from Gloomhaven. I'm taking...
Well, that's what you
I
just
mean
said.
The people I play Gloomhaven with, Callan.
Kellen wanted in on that.
No, he
No.
didn't.
Okay. This is like this is like the easiest one, right? We have one that's going to be 1 or 2 in the rankings, and one that's going to be 14 or 15. So like it's going to be like bookended by oaths here. Am I wrong or am I wrong?
We'll see. I have sworn off Oathsworn after a brief dalliance, and I'm going with Oath. Fire away.
Oath, fire away.
Oathsworn Into the Deepwood versus Kabuto Sumo.
Okay, see, this is easy. This is easy. We've got the coin game, Mark, that you love, where you put the coin in, it pushes it off, and you get money.
This is not the type of coin game I like. Is this counterinsurgency? I don't think so.
Sumo.
This is
Sir.
not where Kabuto Sumo is going to get its due against Oathsworn. I'm sorry, Callan. Oathsworn, fire away.
Promise.
Wait, can you tell me why I should vote for this game? Because I don't like. I think that game is literally the dumbest game in the arcade. That's the worst game. You're throwing your quarters at other quarters to knock them down.
Okay.
What are you
Mark,
doing?
Can you just look at the cover art
Yeah, send
for
me a
5
picture,
seconds? Can you
please,
shut the
because I
f up
don't know.
and look at the
Kabuto.
The cover art's
yeah,
pretty good.
because I think you're going to look at this and you're going to say, wow, the art is by Kwanchai Morie, and I get it. Kabuto Sumo. Easy money. Look at that.
Oh my god, dude!
Look at that.
Oathsworn, far away.
What?
I can't do it. You can't
You
sell
looked
to
at
me as a coin
Kwanchai's
game in the
eyes?
arcade.
You looked at Kwanchai's eyes and chose Oathsworn?
I'm sorry, I can't do it. You can't sell to me that way. You can't say, imagine going to the arcade and throwing your coin at that coin game where you just try to knock down other quarters. It's so
I can't
dumb.
help it if you're at the arcade. Mark.
I was great at skee ball, have you know?
Okay, let's carry this forward into Kabuto Sumo versus LAMA Dice.
Oh, no.
And this is where
my
Kabuto
God.
Sumo
This
gets
is a
it
battle.
due, Callan. Fire away, Kabuto Sumo. Tipping point, the board game. Yes.
I'm going to do a Kabuto Sumo here just because I feel bad. And it doesn't matter.
I'm a llama man.
Oh, you're a
here,
llama
but
man. Okay.
It doesn't
I'm-
matter. You've already voted Kabuto Sumo.
yeah.
It's over.
Okay, Gods of Atlantis 2 versus Skyrise.
Hype is such an interesting thing, right? It's like most anticipated of the year. Like Guards of Atlantis 2, I am all in. You are all in for our own copies that we've paid for, with our own money, despite having a card in the game, which is amazing. But, a game that I have not played has a little bit more of that promise that it could be the one. I think that in general, that's probably just completely untrue because most games are bad. So for me, Guards of Atlantis, fire away. But it just in the back of my mind, it's like, but you've never played Skyrise, Kellen. It could be the new Cosmic Encounter. Probably isn't.
I get the argument that you're making, Kellen, although I think it's tempered with Skyrise specifically because it is an older game.
Yeah.
It is, on one level, a known quantity. It's not
Yep.
like that whole who knows. That said, I'm going to go Skyrise, but it's super close. fire away.
It'll be Gods of Atlantis 2 for me, and that's not to say I'm not looking forward to Skyrise. I didn't know much about Metropolis, but I like everything you said about it, and Roxley remaking it. I mean, what they did with Brass Birmingham was amazing, so I'm sure it will get its due later, but Gods of Atlantis 2...
these are 14 great games and Oathsworn, but, like, these are all things that we're anticipating. You know, like, don't say anything about Kabuto Sumo here, Mark, but 14 amazing anticipated games and Oathsworn.
Skyrise versus Ankh, Gods of Egypt. Will Mark betray his own people?
I will. By saying Skyrise. Fire away.
Okay, this one's pretty easy. Ankh is another one that Neil and I both backed on Kickstarter. We're very careful with our collections. Mark's collection is sort of ephemeral. There's always like 700 to 1 million games, and you never know what's in his collection. But Neil and I are a little bit more like one-to-one in sync with our board games. Oh, you're backing that? Okay, I won't back that. Let's go in on this together. I'll get that one, you get that one from a collection. With Eric laying games with things like Ankh and Rising Sun, it's sort of an every man for himself because we both want the games. I'm very excited for Ankh. I think I am all in on a gameplay pledge level. I did not get all the nicks and knacks, but I was still over some absurd amount of money. But Ankh, fire away. I have to be excited after I've dropped a second mortgage to purchase.
I think, like, similarly, Kellen, this is one of only 2 recent games that I've done all in on, the other being Gods of Atlantis 2, because I just don't like to do that anymore. But the Eric Lang heavy CMON miniatures games really, really speak to me. This is Ankh, fire away. Okay, Brazil Imperial versus Dokojong.
Ugh.
Brazil Imperial, fire away.
Ooh. I think it's Brazil for me as well, as much as I love the pugs.
Come on. You were actually going to do the pug game over Brazil Imperial?
Look.
Party games are games too, Mark.
I feel like there are very few Oink games that have, like, ultimately I felt were, like, terrible. You know, like, they're always weird. They're always interesting.
I think I hide the bad one.
That's probably
to be
true.
fair.
But yeah, no, Brazil Imperial looks fantastic. Fire away. Dokojong versus Coffee Traders. This is Dokojong for me.
Dokojong, fire away.
This is you know what this is? Actually, this is a travesty. Coffee Traders, fire away.
Coffee Traders versus...
You were going to hate Dokojong. I'm going to call it right now.
Are you kidding? No one's going to hate Dokojong.
I'm calling that right now that Neelan
you're
not
be biased.
Like
you're going to come in biased, Mark. We're not even going to believe you. You know, we're going to have to hashtag Dokojong Gate because you're coming in hot on this.
Go for
Coffee Traders versus Furnace.
Yeah, so for me, Furnace was number 1 on my list, just as we're bearing all of our cards here. I'm very excited for Furnace. I think accessible games is kind of where my head is at right now in terms of my ability to have, like, thinking power, the super, super heavy stuff. Like, I just don't have the brain power in COVID land to get to. But if it's got that, but it's good, you know, there's a cool decision-making, player interaction. Love Smartphone Inc. A revelation for me, frankly. Super excited to say Furnace, fire away.
Yeah, I didn't have Furnace on my list, and Coffee Traders is high on my list, but I am still going to go Coffee Traders, but I am definitely excited for Furnace as well.
This is a hard one for me because Furnace reminds me of a lot of games I feel like I just don't love. Like, there's a little bit of just like the card tableau game where I'm just not really as into that genre so much as like Kellen and Mark are, I feel. Whereas Coffee Traders, I feel like the capstone pedigree, like the heavy economic game, as much as on the surface I'm like not excited. Like, you put anything from Capstone in front of me, I'm a little bit interested in it.
And honestly, if you've played Splendor, you've played Furnace, so...
Excuse me?
It's basically the same thing. It's like basically the same thing.
And Splendor can't be killed, so you make a good point, Mark. Yeah, no, I think Coffee Traders is, I would say, the one I'm more excited for of these two. Fireware and Coffee Traders.
I'm just saying, neither of you could dial in an espresso shot.
Furnace versus Arkwright, the card game.
I'm excited for Furnace, but I'm going Arkwright. Fire away.
It's easy vote.
Yeah, I'm going to go Furnace.
Fire away.
If we're talking card tableau games, I will take the one that is lighter and quicker over the one that's 3.7 and 4 hours long. Furnace, fire away. Arkwright, the card game versus Perseverance, Castaway, Chronicles.
Kellen, we're playing Arkwright. You told me we're playing Arkwright.
I'm tempted to vote for Perseverance. Listen, the hard thing is I like games that get weird. They're just usually bad. And so it's sort of this like, well, it could be really interesting and it could be really fun. And it's fun to reward developers that try weird things. And Arkwright, the card game, is definitely not them trying a weird thing. It's them taking a known quantity and then giving you 17 piles of cards to play that known quantity. But still, I'm more excited to play Arkwright, the card game.
Kellen, Squishy, Berry, components.
Yeah, that didn't work forever, Del.
Wow.
Arkwright, the card game, far away.
God damn it. And there it is. That is the end of our ranking, and our list is as follows. Starting from number 15, we have...
Don't we have a list of 14 and
We do not, actually.
I don't think Oathsworn's last.
I'm sorry to say it isn't, Kellen. Number 15.
If this is a Dr. Reiner Knizia game, you could all shut the hell up.
Dr. Reiner Knizia proudly accepts number 15 on the Board Game Barrage list. LAMA.
It's an honor
Knight.
just to be on the list.
Number 14 is Kabuto Sumo.
Thank God.
What?
Thank God.
I'm actually a little bit sad about that because I do think I actually do want to play that. But not as much as I want to play Oathsworn at number 13. Number 12 is Darwin's Journey, which I expected to do better on here, to be honest. Number 11 is Weather Machine by Vitalis Surda. Number 10 is Mindclash's Perseverance, Castaway Chronicles. Number 9 is Arkwright the Card Game. Number 8 is Furnace. Number 7 is Coffee Traders. Number 6 is Skyrise. Number 5 is Dokojong. Number 4, Ankh, Gods of Egypt. Number 3, Brazil Imperial. Number 2, Gods of Atlantis 2. And Board Game Barage's number 1 most anticipated game of 2021 is Oath, Chronicles of Empire and Exile.
That's a pretty good list.
Yeah, that is a great list of 15 games I'm excited to play, except Arkwright.
Except Dokojong. And
That's
Kabuto,
number
of
5,
course.
Mark. You can't say that's definitive.
I cannot believe Dokojong is number 5.
You don't have the same like little kick for the tiny box of...
No, I do. I definitely appreciate like the small footprint and the uniqueness of Oink games, but I've played Oink games that I did not like. Pyramid's Dilemma. Oh. And there's some that are just very much, I think, blahs. Some are great. Some are like among my favorite games, but I think Oink can miss for sure. And I have nothing to make me think that Dokojong is going to be.
I don't think they would put a pug on the cover if it was going to be a bad game.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. That's a good counterpoint.
I think Oath is a great winner in this and timely because we are maybe a month away from this getting shipped to US backers. So we could be playing this in the very near future. Exciting stuff. That's going to do it for this week's episode of the show. Thank you all for listening.
Real quick, I know people are clamoring for more Bunker Battlefield Blown Away, and it was my intention to do it, but we're running long. We'll have it. Don't worry about it. I know there's a big uproar for it, and it'll come back.
Let's say that it will be back next week. Our commitment to you, the listener. But as always, thank you to Heart Society for our intro and outro music, What's in Your Mind, Kid, and please reach out to us however you choose to on all of our social media, whether that's Facebook at BoardGameBarrage.com/Facebook or on Twitter at BRDGameBarrage, or as always, you can join our Discord. That's at BoardGameBarrage.com/Discord, where you can talk with everyone else in the community about the latest episode or just the games you'll be playing. We've had a lot of fun with the recent deals that have been happening on online websites, a lot of trading happening. Come hang out with us at BoardGameBarrage.com/Discord. But otherwise, we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Thanks for the reviews. Go to BoardGameBarrage.com/vote and mobilize once again.
If one of these came out a year for the rest of my life until I deceased, so, 87 years from now or something, I would be happy.
Give or take.
Well, I mean, I eat impeccably, Mark.
That's true. A well-oiled machine.
I'm actually on a diet right now just to annoy Christina. Like, the entire premise of the diet is to annoy Christina. It is called the potato diet. She did not believe that I would do it.
Right.
And this diet was created by a magician. I'm not lying. I don't know if it was Penn or if it was Tell.
No, I
this
don't know
real.
about this. This is
real.
Of course you know about this.
Yeah, I kind of just watched this video not that long ago, funnily enough.
It has to do,
That's so
Mark, with
bizarre.
the satiation index. Okay? Are you
No, I'm
familiar?
well aware of the satiation index.
Okay, well, what that says is that potatoes at 100 calories will feel like 200 calories of bread.
Why?
Ergo, the satiation index.
Oh,
I already
right. Sorry,
told you.
I forgot. Of course. No, sorry.
Okay, great. And so this diet is well tested by magicians, but the only thing is all you can eat is potatoes. Doesn't matter what kind. Golden, russet, sweet, all allowed, but you can't put anything on them.
Okay.
So it's very boring. And she doesn't believe that I can make it to your birthday party on Saturday, having only eaten the potatoes. And she's convinced that the only reason that I'm doing it is so that I can tell people at the party that I haven't eaten anything but potatoes. But, like, now that she says that, I have to do it.
Right. I agree.
But we're on day 1, and I'm dying already.
Oh, Jesus.
So that is Clever Cubed.
Yep. Thank you, Callan.
You guys want to see something funny?
Yeah.
Misty Boo, do you want to go outside? Let's go. What?
Are we going?
Yeah, we're going right now. I just told her. She's excited.
Okay, are you saying bye?
Yeah, I said bye. They're going. All right. Good night,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Right.
Bye.
Hitting stop.